The unexpected arrival. The sun rose like any other day, casting golden light across the earth. People went about their business, unaware of the storm that was brewing in the sky. In cities around the world, life seemed normal. People heading to work, children playing in the parks, and birds singing in the trees. Yet that morning, something was different. A strange chill hung in the air. Suddenly, the calm was shattered. Without warning, a massive shadow covered the earth. People looked up, their faces turning pale as they saw it. A fleet of alien ships, dark and ominous, filling the sky like an unstoppable army. They weren't just hovering. They were descending. Cities everywhere were plunged into chaos. The first few moments were filled with confusion. Were they visitors? Peaceful travelers from another world? No one knew. But as the ships moved closer, it became clear this was not a peaceful arrival. The ships were like nothing humanity had ever seen, their technology far beyond anything the world had developed. The air around them crackled with strange energy, sending waves of fear through the masses. In Washington, D.C., the government scrambled to respond. Emergency meetings were held, but no one knew what to do. The president's voice, shaking with concern, echoed over the speakers, telling the public that they were working to understand the situation. But in the streets, panic began to spread. People ran in every direction, unsure of where to go or who to trust. Over in New York, the massive ships began to release a terrifying weapon. It was a beam of light, bright, blinding, and unyielding. It struck buildings, tearing them apart as if they were made of paper. The streets filled with screams as the destruction began. In moments, some of the tallest skyscrapers were reduced to rubble. The air was thick with smoke, and the ground shook with each blast. No one had any answers. The aliens did not speak. They did not offer any demands. They simply destroyed everything in their path. Amidst the madness, some of the world's brightest minds came together. Scientists, military leaders, and historians. They tried to find some understanding of what was happening. Were these invaders part of some larger galactic empire? Had they been watching Earth for years, waiting for the right moment to strike? Theories flew, but none could be confirmed. All they knew was that humanity's future was at stake. Dr. Maria Alvarez, a well-known historian and archaeologist, stood in her office, looking out at the chaos. She had been studying ancient myths and legends for years, fascinated by the stories of Earth's old gods and heroes. Yet today, something in her gut told her that those old tales might not be just stories. Something inside her told her that the legends of Earth's forgotten guardians might hold the key to surviving this attack. She shook the thought from her head. It was crazy, she thought. Myths were nothing but stories, right? But as she watched the alien ships hover over the cities, their dark forms silhouetted against the sky, she couldn't ignore the eerie feeling that something ancient was waking up. The air around her seemed charged with energy, almost as if the Earth itself was holding its breath. The ships began to land. Across the globe, massive metal feet touched the ground with a thundering crash. The air vibrated with the force of their arrival. As the aliens disembarked, their figures became clearer, tall, armored beings, their faces hidden behind dark helmets. They moved with purpose, and wherever they stepped, destruction followed. They unleashed weapons that disintegrated everything in their path. The humans tried to fight back. Military jets screamed through the sky, launching missiles at the ships. But it was no use. The alien shields absorbed the blasts, and the missiles fell uselessly to the ground. The soldiers on the ground were powerless against their advanced technology. The world's military leaders were left with no choice but to issue orders for full retreat. In every major city, from London to Beijing, panic swept through the streets. People fled to underground bunkers or tried to escape to rural areas, hoping to avoid the impending doom. The world seemed to be on the verge of collapse. Was this the end? Dr. Alvarez knew there was only one thing that might save them: the forgotten myths. She had spent her career studying the stories of Earth's ancient civilizations, tales of powerful beings that once protected humanity, warriors of great strength and mysterious powers who, according to legend, would return in Earth's darkest hour. It was crazy, she thought again. No one would believe her if she tried to share this theory. But as the aliens continued their assault, she realized that there was only one possible explanation for what was happening. The myths were real. As the sun dipped below the horizon, darkness filled the earth. People around the world prayed for a miracle, but most believed there was no hope. Little did they know, something deep within the planet was stirring. Something ancient, something powerful, and it was waking up. The aliens had made a grave mistake. They had underestimated humanity, and they had underestimated Earth itself. In that moment, as the world held its breath, the first sign of humanity's forgotten guardians began to appear. But no one knew yet. This was just the beginning. The myths resurface. As the days passed, Earth's cities lay in ruins, and the people were filled with despair. The alien invaders, with their superior technology, seemed unstoppable. The news broadcasts were filled with images of destruction, their footage grim and hopeless. There was no place left to hide, and every attempt to fight back had failed. The world's governments issued global broadcasts urging people to remain calm, but the fear in their voices betrayed their true feelings. Earth had no defense against these invaders. Yet in the midst of all this chaos, there was a flicker of hope hidden beneath the rubble. Dr. Maria Alvarez, the historian who had been studying the ancient myths, knew that the answer to humanity's survival lay not in technology or weaponry, but in the old legends. Something deep inside her told her that the myths weren't just stories. They were a map to Earth's forgotten strength. Maria began to gather a team of experts, historians, archaeologists, and scientists. Together, they scoured ancient libraries, long-forgotten ruins, and dusty tombs. They searched for any clue, any trace that could link the myths to the alien invaders. The team uncovered strange symbols, old relics, and cryptic writings that seemed to describe powerful beings of the earth, of nature itself, who once fought to protect humanity. One afternoon, Maria and her team stumbled upon something extraordinary. Buried beneath the crumbled remains of a civilization that predated recorded history, they discovered a hidden chamber. Inside, an ancient library was preserved, filled with scrolls and texts older than anything they had ever seen before. The dust in the air shimmered as they pulled the ancient scrolls from their resting place, and one scroll in particular caught Maria's attention. It was a prophecy, written in a language long forgotten, but Maria was able to translate it using her knowledge of ancient scripts. The prophecy spoke of a time when the earth would be invaded by a great evil, beings from the stars who would seek to destroy everything in their path. But the prophecy also spoke of something else, something incredible. It said that when the earth was on the brink of destruction, the forgotten guardians would awaken to protect humanity. Maria read the prophecy aloud to her team. The words seemed to come alive in the air, almost as if the earth itself was responding to her voice. When the sky darkens and the earth shakes, when the invaders come with fire and steel, the guardians of old will rise once more to defend the children of the earth. The team was stunned. Could it be true? Could these ancient guardians really exist? Maria's mind raced. She knew that the earth had always held secrets beneath its surface, hidden forces that humanity had long since forgotten. But could these mythical guardians really return? She had spent years studying these stories, but even she had trouble believing it. Now, faced with the reality of the alien invasion, Maria knew that the time for belief had passed. The myths were not just stories. They were a warning, and they held the key to humanity's survival. As the team delved deeper into their research, they uncovered more evidence of the guardians. The writings described them as beings of incredible power, drawn from the very elements of the earth: fire, water, earth, and air. These beings were not of flesh and bone, but were tied to the natural world itself. Some ancient cultures had called them gods, others had called them protectors, but all the myths seemed to point to one thing: the guardians would return when the Earth was in peril. Outside, the alien ships hovered menacingly over Earth's cities. The invaders seemed unstoppable, their weapons more powerful than anything humanity had ever faced. The skies were filled with their ships, their dark shadows casting a sense of hopelessness over the world. Maria could feel the pressure building. Time was running out, but she refused to give up. She was certain now that the ancient myths were the key to saving Earth. They had to find a way to awaken the Guardians. The Earth itself was calling for help, and if they could just uncover the right path, the Guardians would answer. As night fell over the ruined city of New York, Maria stood in front of an ancient stone monument, one that had been uncovered during their research. The monument was old, older than any civilization that had ever existed. It was covered in strange symbols, symbols that matched those in the prophecy. Maria placed her hand on the stone, and for a brief moment, the ground beneath her feet trembled. A faint, almost imperceptible vibration ran through the earth, and Maria felt a strange warmth radiating from the stone. Her heart raced. This was it. The Guardians were awakening. In that moment, the earth itself seemed to respond. The winds began to shift, the air crackled with energy, and the earth beneath their feet rumbled. The myths were no longer just stories. They were real. The Guardians were coming. But the question remained: would they be enough to stop the alien invaders? Would these ancient beings, whose powers were tied to the very elements, be able to save humanity from the oncoming storm? The suspense hung in the air like a thick fog. Humanity had one last chance. Would the legends prove true? Would the forgotten Guardians rise to defend Earth once more? Only time would tell. The Awakening. As the days passed, Earth continued to endure the relentless assault of the alien invaders. Cities were left in ruins, military defenses shattered, and hope seemed to be a distant memory. The alien ships hovered above the world like dark vultures, waiting to pick off what was left of humanity. The situation seemed more desperate by the hour. Yet, in the midst of the overwhelming chaos, something began to stir beneath the surface. Dr. Maria Alvarez couldn't shake the feeling that something ancient was waking up. Every night, she dreamed of towering figures emerging from the earth, their forms made of stone, fire, and water. The legends spoke of them, guardians who would rise when the earth was in danger. She had seen the signs, the tremors that passed through the ground when she stood by the monument, and the strange, growing energy that seemed to pulse from the heart of the planet. One evening, Maria stood alone in the ruins of an old temple, a place she had discovered in her search for clues. The air around her felt charged, heavy with a sense of anticipation. The wind howled through the broken walls of the ancient structure, carrying with it the scent of rain and earth. She placed her hand on an old stone altar, tracing the faded symbols with her fingers. For a moment, she thought she felt the faintest tremor beneath her feet, like the earth was whispering to her. And then it happened. A deep rumble echoed through the ground, far below the surface. The air itself seemed to shimmer with energy, and the sky darkened as if in response. The wind grew stronger, swirling around her like a vortex. Maria's heart raced. This was it, the awakening she had feared and hoped for. The Guardians were stirring. The ground beneath her feet cracked, sending dust and debris flying into the air. A blinding light erupted from the center of the old temple, and Maria shielded her eyes as the light grew brighter. She stepped back, her breath caught in her throat. The monument she had touched was now glowing with an otherworldly radiance. The rumble grew louder, and the air thickened with power. From the heart of the earth, the first of the Guardians began to rise. The ground shifted, and from the center of the crumbling ruins, a colossal figure emerged. It was unlike anything Maria had ever seen. The being was made of earth, solid and unyielding, its body a living, breathing form of stone and dirt. Towering above the ruins, the Guardian's eyes glowed with a fierce, golden light. Its movements were slow, deliberate, but with an undeniable strength. It seemed to be one with the earth itself. Maria could hardly believe what she was witnessing. The legend was true. The guardians were real. The air around her pulsed with energy as the guardian stood to its full height, reaching toward the sky as if calling to the heavens. The ground beneath it cracked and shifted, as if the earth itself were answering the call. The winds picked up, swirling around the figure and lifting dust and debris into the air. But this was just the beginning. As the first guardian rose, Maria felt the ground tremble again. Another figure emerged, this one made of water. The being's body shimmered like liquid, its form constantly shifting and flowing, as though it were not bound by any physical shape. Its eyes were deep and blue, reflecting the very oceans of the earth. The guardian's movements were fluid and graceful, but there was an undeniable strength in its presence. It was as if the very oceans had come to life to defend the planet. Maria watched in awe as the two guardians stood side by side, their immense power radiating from them. They were ancient, powerful beings, one made of stone, the other of water, emerging from the earth itself to protect humanity. The air was thick with energy as the guardians seemed to communicate, their eyes glowing with a shared purpose. But there was more to come. In the distance, another tremor shook the ground, and a third guardian emerged, this one made of fire. The being was like a living flame, its body composed of flickering, ever-changing flames. Its eyes burned with intensity, reflecting the very heart of the Earth's molten core. The fire guardian's presence was both terrifying and awe-inspiring. As it stepped forward, the air grew hot, and the ground beneath it seemed to crackle with the heat of 1,000 suns. Now, there were 3 guardians, each a manifestation of the Earth's elements. Together, they stood as a testament to the ancient power of the planet, waiting for the invaders to make their next move. Maria could hardly comprehend what she had just witnessed. The guardians were here. They had returned to protect the Earth. But would they be enough to stop the alien forces? As the alien ships continued their assault on the cities below, the guardians began to move. The stone giant's massive feet shook the ground with each step, and the fire guardian left a trail of flames behind it. The water being moved with grace and speed, its form flowing like a river, ready to defend the planet from any threat. Maria knew that the fight for Earth was just beginning. The guardians had risen, but the battle was far from over. The invaders might have technology beyond anything humanity had ever seen, but the guardians had something far more powerful: the strength of the Earth itself. The suspense grew as Maria realized that the fate of humanity rested on the shoulders of these ancient beings. Would they be enough to turn the tide against the alien invaders, or would Earth's ancient power be no match for the invaders' advanced weaponry? As the guardians moved toward the battle, Maria's heart pounded. The real fight had just begun, and she had no idea what would happen next. Humanity's forgotten heroes. The time had come. The alien invaders had underestimated humanity, and now they were about to face the full force of Earth's ancient guardians. The sky was filled with the dark silhouette of alien ships, hovering menacingly over the battered cities of Earth. Their weapons were unlike anything humans had ever seen. Laser beams, energy pulses, and shields that deflected all attempts to fight back. Earth's military forces had been decimated, and humanity's hope had been all but extinguished. But then, something changed. As the guardians, stone, water, and fire, moved toward the alien forces, a wave of hope washed over the shattered remnants of humanity. For the first time in days, people dared to look up and believe that perhaps, just perhaps, Earth might have a fighting chance. The ground rumbled as the stone guardian, its massive form towering over everything, took the first step onto the battlefield. Each of its movements sent tremors through the earth, shaking the very foundations of the cities. Its glowing golden eyes locked on the alien ships in the sky, and for a moment, the world seemed to hold its breath. The fire guardian, its body blazing like a living inferno, followed closely behind. Its eyes burned with the fierce intensity of 1,000 suns, and as it moved, the air itself seemed to grow hotter. Flames erupted from its hands, as if it were drawing fire from the Earth's core itself. The Fire Guardian's power was undeniable. It was as if the very element of destruction itself had come to life, ready to wage war against the invaders. And then, the Water Guardian, fluid, graceful, and unstoppable, slid across the battlefield like a tidal wave. Its body shifted and flowed like the ocean itself, its eyes glowing the deep oceanic blue. The air around it crackled with the energy of the seas. Wherever it went, the ground seemed to ripple, as though the earth was responding to its presence. The Water Guardian moved with grace, but its power was formidable. It could wash away anything in its path. Together, these ancient beings, representing the raw, untamable forces of nature, took their places on the battlefield. Humanity, having watched in awe, now found itself united in a single purpose: to fight alongside these mythic guardians in the face of overwhelming odds. But the alien invaders were not easily deterred. They had their own weapons, and they had no intention of allowing their conquest to be interrupted by forces they did not understand. As the Guardians moved forward, the aliens opened fire, launching energy blasts that crackled through the air with terrifying speed. The Stone Guardian was the first to react. It raised its massive arm and blocked the incoming blasts with its hardened stone-like skin. The energy beams hit its chest, but they only bounced off, unable to pierce its impenetrable body. The Guardian roared, its voice echoing across the battlefield like the thunder of a storm, and with one powerful swing of its massive fist, it sent one of the alien ships spiraling out of control, crashing into the ground in a fiery explosion. The Fire Guardian was next. As it advanced, it summoned a torrent of flames that shot into the sky, surrounding the alien ships in a blazing inferno. The aliens tried to retaliate, but their weapons melted under the intense heat. The Fire Guardian's flames turned the battlefield into a furnace, and one by one, the alien ships began to fall from the sky, consumed by fire. The Water Guardian, ever fluid and unyielding, moved with grace and power. It raised its arms, and the very ground beneath the alien invaders cracked open. A massive wave of water surged from the earth, sweeping across the battlefield. The aliens tried to retreat, but the flood was unstoppable. The water engulfed their forces, drowning their machines and disabling their weapons. The Water Guardian moved through the chaos, its body flowing like a river, unstoppable and relentless. For the first time in days, the tide of battle had shifted. The alien forces, once so sure of their victory, were now on the defensive. The Guardians were too powerful, their connection to Earth too deep. But even with this newfound hope, the battle was far from over. The alien fleet, though reeling from the sudden assault, was not without its own strength. They retaliated with a new weapon, a massive energy cannon mounted on one of their largest ships. The cannon fired a concentrated blast of energy, aimed directly at the Guardians. The ground shook as the energy blast struck the Stone Guardian, sending shockwaves through the battlefield. The Stone Guardian staggered, its body cracking from the blast. But it did not fall. With a mighty roar, it gathered its strength and charged at the alien ship, its massive fists pounding against its shielded hull. The Fire Guardian, seeing the danger, summoned a wave of flame that engulfed the energy cannon, melting it before it could fire again. But the real threat came from the skies. Alien ships swooped down, unleashing another barrage of energy blasts. The Guardians were powerful, but the alien weapons were relentless. The battle had only just begun, and it was clear that the Guardians, no matter how powerful, could not defeat the invaders alone. That's when humanity's true strength became apparent. People all over the world, watching from the safety of underground bunkers and abandoned cities, began to fight back. Soldiers, civilians, scientists, people from every walk of life, rallied together, using every resource at their disposal. Military forces, once defeated, began to regroup. They launched their counterattacks, working alongside the Guardians to push back the invaders. Earth's greatest strength had always been its people, and now they were fighting for survival. The Guardians fought with the raw power of nature itself, but humanity fought with the strength of unity, courage, and determination. Together, they stood against the alien invaders, proving that Earth's greatest weapon was not just its ancient guardians, but its people who would never give up, no matter the odds. And so, the battle raged on. The Guardians fought valiantly, but humanity had shown that it would not be beaten. The invaders would learn that Earth was not an easy conquest, and that the combined power of the Earth's guardians and its people would not be easily defeated. The fate of the planet now lay in their hands. But one thing was certain: this fight was far from over. The final stand. The battle had raged for days, and the alien invaders, despite their overwhelming technology and seemingly infinite resources, were starting to falter. Their ships had been brought down one by one, torn apart by the raw power of Earth's ancient guardians. Cities that had once been reduced to rubble were now the backdrop of a desperate fight for survival. Yet, even with the tide turning, the invaders were relentless. In the skies above, the alien fleet regrouped. The largest of their ships, an enormous warship far bigger than anything humanity had ever seen, was still hovering ominously. It had taken considerable damage, but its central core remained intact, and its cannons were aimed squarely at the heart of Earth's resistance. This ship housed the invaders' most dangerous weapon, a massive energy cannon capable of annihilating entire cities in a single blast. If it fired again, the consequences would be catastrophic. Maria stood at the front lines, her mind racing. She could feel the tension in the air, thick with uncertainty. The Guardians were powerful, yes, but they were not invincible. The Stone Guardian had already suffered from the alien cannon's blasts, and the Fire and Water Guardians were struggling to maintain their energy against the onslaught of alien forces. Humanity was doing everything they could, but the sheer size of the alien fleets still seemed like too much to overcome. "This is it," Maria whispered to herself. "It's time for the final stand." The Stone Guardian, though cracked and battered, stood tall, its eyes burning with an unyielding resolve. The Fire Guardian still blazed with fury, its body a living inferno that scorched anything that came too close. The Water Guardian was more graceful than ever, its movements like a tidal wave, sweeping away enemies in its path. Together, they had been Earth's last hope, but their strength was fading, and the invaders were closing in. Maria knew they needed a plan, a final push that could end this. But the Guardians needed help from humanity. The battle was no longer just about the Guardians fighting for Earth. It was about all of humanity joining together for one last desperate effort to drive the invaders back. She turned to the command center, where military leaders and civilians were working together in a last-ditch effort to stop the alien threat. "We need to concentrate all our firepower on that ship," Maria said. "If we can disable their energy cannon, we have a chance." With the Guardians holding the front lines, humanity's forces launched their final assault. Jets and rockets streaked through the air, targeting the alien ship's weak points. It was a coordinated attack, one that required every soldier, every scientist, and every civilian to be on the same page. The stakes had never been higher. The world was watching, and this was their last opportunity to end the war. The alien ship fired its cannon again, but this time, it wasn't aimed at the cities. Instead, it targeted the Guardians. The blast tore through the air, hitting the Stone Guardian directly. The earth-shaking explosion sent shockwaves across the battlefield. The Guardian staggered, its massive form cracking under the force of the impact. The Fire Guardian roared in fury, its flames flaring higher than ever as it charged toward the alien ship. But something extraordinary happened. As the Fire Guardian neared the ship, it reached out with its hand, summoning an enormous burst of flame that collided with the alien ship's shields. For the first time, the shields began to flicker. The alien ship's energy systems had been pushed to their limit. The stone guardian, though weakened, lifted its arms and threw itself toward the alien warship, its fists pounding against the shield with a force that shook the heavens. The alien ship retaliated with its own power, firing again. But this time, the water guardian surged forward. It crashed into the alien ship, summoning an enormous wave that slammed into its hull. The water surged over the alien vessel, cascading over its weakened shield, and for the first time in days, the invaders faltered. Maria watched in awe as humanity's and the Guardian's combined strength began to overpower the alien forces. The invaders were realizing, too late, that Earth was not the helpless planet they had assumed it to be. The Guardians, with the full force of humanity behind them, were unstoppable. With one final earth-shaking roar, the Stone Guardian drove its massive fist into the heart of the alien ship. The ship trembled and groaned, and then, with a thunderous explosion, it shattered into pieces, sending debris falling across the battlefield. The remaining alien ships scattered, retreating into the stars as their command ship was destroyed. The battle was over. The final stand had been won. As the dust settled and the smoke cleared, Maria stood among the survivors, watching as the Guardians, their forms glowing with the energy of Earth itself, slowly faded back into the Earth. Their work was done. Earth was safe. But as the world celebrated its victory, Maria couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. The Guardians had come to Earth's aid, but who knew what other threats lurked beyond the stars? One thing was certain: Earth had been forever changed. The people of Earth had learned that even in their darkest hour, when everything seemed lost, there was power in unity, courage, and belief. And with the Guardians as proof, humanity now knew that they were not alone in the universe. But for now, the world could breathe easy. Earth had won. And humanity had proven that, no matter what, they would never give up. The Guardians had returned, and they had given humanity a chance to live. And for the first time in a long while, the future seemed bright again. Victory and revelation. The air was thick with smoke and dust, and the ground still trembled beneath the remnants of the battle. The alien fleet was gone, their once dominant ships scattered across the sky and ground like broken toys. The massive warship that had been the source of so much destruction now lay in ruins, a testament to Earth's resilience and the strength of its ancient guardians. The battle had been won, but the price had been high. Cities lay in ruins, lives had been lost, and the world would take years to rebuild. Maria stood at the edge of the battlefield, her eyes scanning the horizon, where the last of the alien ships had disappeared into the sky. The Guardians, their forms now fading like the last embers of a dying fire, had completed their mission. They had saved Earth from certain destruction, but at what cost? As she watched their ethereal figures dissolve into the Earth, she felt both a sense of gratitude and a deep sense of loss. The Stone Guardian, its massive form now reduced to a series of glowing lines that slowly merged with the Earth, had been the first to leave. The Fire Guardian, its flames flickering for one final moment before they too disappeared, was the next to go. Finally, the Water Guardian, its graceful form now just a ripple in the air, faded away like the last wave crashing onto the shore. Maria closed her eyes for a moment, letting the weight of everything sink in. She had lived through the greatest battle in Earth's history, and humanity had won. But now, the question remained: what came next? What was Earth's future now that it had faced an enemy from the stars and emerged victorious? The surviving leaders from around the world gathered in the ruins of New York City, a symbol of both destruction and hope. The United Nations had called for an emergency summit to discuss the aftermath. People from all corners of the globe stood together, their faces tired but filled with pride. Humanity had fought as one, and they had succeeded. But the alien invasion was only the beginning of a much larger story. Maria, standing among the leaders, took a deep breath. She knew that the world could never return to the way it was before. The alien invasion had shaken the very foundation of human existence. There were so many questions left unanswered. Why had the aliens targeted Earth? How had they known about the planet in the first place? And what of the ancient guardians? What was their true purpose? Were they merely protectors, or did they have a deeper connection to the Earth? As if sensing her thoughts, the voice of the world's new leader, the President of the United States, spoke over the crowd, his voice strong and steady. We have won today, but the victory is not ours alone. We stand here because we, the people of Earth, came together. We are united as one, and in that unity, we have found our strength. The crowd erupted in applause, but Maria couldn't shake the feeling that something greater was waiting just beyond the horizon. The world had learned the power of unity, but now humanity would need to face an uncertain future. The Guardians were gone, their role fulfilled, but what if there were more threats out there in the vastness of space? What if Earth's victory had only been a brief reprieve before a greater challenge came to pass? Maria looked up at the stars, her thoughts racing. She remembered the words from the ancient prophecy she had translated. When the sky darkens and the earth shakes, the guardians will rise. The invaders had come. They had attacked. But Earth had been saved. The guardians had returned when humanity needed them most, and they had given Earth a chance to live. But were they gone for good? Maria couldn't believe that the Earth would be left unprotected again. If the guardians could return once, why couldn't they return again? And if the invaders had found Earth once, what would stop them from returning? Or worse, bringing others? A sudden faint rumble shook the ground beneath her feet. It was subtle, almost like an aftershock, but it was enough to make Maria pause. She turned to look at the others, but no one seemed to notice. Could it be? Was it possible that the guardians were not gone after all? Her heart pounded in her chest as she began to feel something. An energy in the air, something ancient, something primal. The Earth was alive, responding to something. She could feel it in her bones, the power that pulsed beneath the surface, waiting, watching. It was as if the planet itself was preparing for something. And then, as if on cue, a beam of light shot up from the ground, just where the stone guardian had fallen. It was faint at first, a flickering glow that grew brighter with each passing second. Maria's breath caught in her throat as she realized what this meant. The guardians weren't just tied to Earth's surface. They were tied to its very core. They had only been dormant, waiting for the call. The light grew stronger, pulsing in rhythm with the heartbeat of the planet. It wasn't over. Earth had survived this battle, but it had just awakened something far older and far more powerful than anyone could have imagined. Maria smiled to herself, a sense of peace washing over her. The guardians had returned once, and they could return again. The Earth was not alone in this vast universe. With the strength of humanity and the power of its ancient protectors, Earth was ready for whatever might come next. The guardians were not gone. They were merely waiting.